The cancer doesn't show up in the blood work unless it's a blood cancer.
Did you know that what you just heard? I didn't. Well, hello, friend. Welcome back. I know you stopped by because you were expecting another chat where you could be enlightened, inspired, and informed. Well, guess what? You've come to the right place. Yes, this is Life and Faith Chats. We have another special guest who's going to be sharing her memoir, her book with us. You'll want to hear everything she has to say. So this chat is divided into three parts. You will want to hear all of it because it gets better and better. Join us. Yes, this is Life and Faith Chats, and I am your host, Joy. And you know the deal? You know this is the place where we use the #1 best-selling book in the world, the Bible, to inform us and enlighten us, and also interviews that give us information to help us walk in the purpose that God designed for us to walk. So let's get into it. I am honored to have a very special guest today who happens to be a best-selling author, a family and patient advocate, and a cancer survivor. And our guest today is Mrs. Bari Roberts Ross. Welcome to Life and Faith Chats podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and share my story.
I'm excited to hear, and what a privilege. Thank you. You have a fascinating and unique story. I read things, but I started reading your book last night and I didn't want to put it down. I got the Kindle version. I was like, wow. So I've really been looking forward anyway. Could you please tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm a Midwest girl. But I've lived in I always say people, I've lived in every major city except for LA and San Francisco. Have moved around quite a bit. My choice, the adventurer. I am a world traveler. I love to travel. That's my passion. This COVID has kind of put me in a tizzy, having to be at home instead of on a plane, but I've adjusted.
Okay.
I am married to Charles Ross, and he is a major part of the story that I wrote. It's in memoir form. We have been married 19 years.
Wow.
And when the story begins, we were practically newlyweds.
Wow.
But the crux of the story, or the point of the story, and again, it's a memoir, is that in 2009, my husband and I were diagnosed with 2 types of deadly cancer 72 hours apart.
Wow.
Yeah. And what makes our story unique is that most of the time, in most situations, it's one spouse or the other, or one person in the family. But for us, it was a double whammy, and dealing with that and how we got through it. We are both survivors. I am 11-year survivor. My husband is an 11-year survivor.
Wow, praise God.
And he's had 2 cancers.
Ah.
He had the initial one. It was called acute lymphoblastic leukemia. He had a leukemia in 2009. I was diagnosed with a rare case of, they call it head and neck cancer. It was all the way in the back of my throat, at the base of my tongue. And it's very rare. And it's especially rare for African-American women. Mm-hmm. But cancer can strike anybody in any place. Yes. That's what cancer does.
Wow. Before I continue with your story, I am interested in something. I'm curious about something you said before that, and I know it's totally off the story in terms of what you said. You said you like traveling, you are a world traveler. So I was just curious before I jump into the story about what are some of the places you visited and any favorite places. And I know this is separate from the
No
story.
problem. No problem. We're just talking. So
Okay.
we're just talking. We're
Okay.
hanging out. So I have been to Senegal and Gambia in the west coast of Africa. I've been to Egypt, which is actually inside the Great Pyramid, which was just a blessing to be able to do that.
One of my dreams.
I'm sorry?
No, I said one
because
of my dreams.
Yes. Oh, and you have to do that one. That's my number one. And I've been a lot of places. I've been to Barcelona, Spain, which is another one of my favorite places. Of course, I've been to France and England and Amsterdam and all through Europe, quite a few European places. I've been to every island in the Caribbean.
Nice.
I've been to Hawaii, every island over there. In fact, one of my favorite trips was to the big island of Hawaii, and I got to stand right on top of the volcano and watch I am. That's my spirit. I've jumped out of airplanes.
You're one of those.
Oh. I'm that girl. Yeah.
I like you. You who I want to be when I grow up. I live vicariously through people like you, because that sounds like my husband and my son. Well, both of my sons.
Yeah.
I like that. That.
Thank you.
I've traveled a lot too, but not, you've got me beat. Okay. Yeah. In terms of world traveler. So you were living your best life. I even read and saw that you owned a restaurant.
Yeah. My husband and I had retired from corporate America, which we both worked in, and had decided, so what are we going to do next? We were newlyweds. We wanted to try something different. So we were in Virginia. We moved out to Phoenix. That was our first thing. We were just going to change where we live. And then when we got out there, we were like, so what are we going to do? Did not want to go back into corporate, and just thought about owning our own business. So in looking around Phoenix, and this was 12, 15 years ago. And looking around Phoenix, we saw that there weren't a lot of, there were only a couple of African-American owned restaurants. And so we thought that would be a great business opportunity, something new. We decided to do seafood in the desert.
Nice.
Yeah, so, and then there were a lot of people moving from the East Coast out there who were looking for crab cakes, who were looking for, different kinds of fish and seafood and those kinds of things, because it's not really big out there. It's mostly Mexican food and Southwestern food. Yes. So I thought, this looks like an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. So you were healthy, and then this happened.
Yeah.
Did you have any kind of clue, any feelings about, anything that was kind of off kilter?
Yeah. My husband had tons of clues. My husband was actually, had many, many symptoms for 4 or 5 months before the diagnosis. He was weak. He was, he had, what do you call them? He had little nodules, little swellings in his lymph nodes and this. And, he had lots of symptoms. I was totally asymptomatic. And which is what I'm learning, or what I've learned, is for certain cancers, you don't know until it's late stage. They're able to hide in the body or not give off signals, or give off signals that it's an infection, or give off signals that it's something else other than what it really is. And that was the kind that I had. Okay. So as happened was, my husband was going for his, going back and forth to the doctor. And I was able to go with him to an appointment. And so he's sitting there, the doctor's still saying, well, we're not sure what's wrong with you, Mr. Ross. or, let's try this, let's try that. I show up and the doctor says, my husband told him, he said, well, I noticed a slight lump, because he had swollen lymph nodes everywhere. And he told the doctor, he said, I noticed a slight knot on the back of my wife's neck. And I said, you do? And he said, yeah. And I said, honey, I'm still up working, running, doing all my usual stuff. And the doctor looked at me and he said, well, let me see what, he said, well, maybe it's something contagious. You guys are passing it back and forth. But again, my husband was literally in the bed and I'm up running the restaurant, doing my life, doing things and taking care of my husband. So when the doctor looked at mine, he said, he said, could you come back tomorrow? I want you to come back tomorrow. I want to run some tests on you. So I did. I went back the next day. He did what they call a fine needle biopsy. He just stuck a needle in the little swelling behind my ear. And 2 days later, he calls me and he says, I don't know, still don't know what your husband has, but you have cancer. And I looked at him. I said, I have cancer? And he said, yes. And I said, oh. I said, but I don't have any symptoms. And he said, well, your symptom is this lump in the back, behind your ear. He said, but clearly the biopsy is showing that it's cancerous. Okay. And I want you to go have some more tests. So I left there and went and had scans. And he called me back and he scheduled my husband for a biopsy a few days later. And when he called me back, he said, you have cancer. And not only do you have cancer, it's spread. I was just blown away. I was really blown away that you've been working with my husband all of these months and you don't know what his diagnosis is, but you have one for me. And the hard part was when he said, I said, so what are we going to do about it? Because I'm the optimist. I'm always going to take the positive side of whatever it is, ask my questions, and try to get an answer.
Had you felt the knot?
No,
before you
had not
said anything?
Not at all.
And if I'm correct, please, I I might not be, please correct me. I think I read that you had just had I guess some kind of physical or something. Yeah. Everything was okay?
Everything was fine. Blood work was
fine. With blood work or anything?
No, because that's not, again, people, the cancer doesn't show up in the blood work unless it's a blood cancer.
That's so good to know. That's yes. Really good to know, because then you leave with this false sense of, oh, okay.
If you have a blood cancer, which is what my husband had the first time, the first cancer he had was a blood cancer. Okay. It was showing up as, white blood cells, inflammation, all of this. But to find out if it's cancer, it needed another level of diagnosis, which was the actual biopsy, to actually take out a lymph node and look at it. But the cancer I had, they would have never gotten it in the blood.
Wow. Okay. Wow. So, yeah. Okay, I still can't wrap my head around it, because then what questions do you ask when you go for your physical and they say everything's fine?
One of the things that we have to do as patients, and this is, now I'm putting on my patient advocate hat. Okay. So one of the things that we have to do as patients is to tell the doctor everything. Okay. They have to know all of your symptoms, not some of your symptoms, not a few of your symptoms. They have to know everything. And even if when they give you that little questionnaire and it says other down at the bottom or on the side. So if they ask you a whole list of questions, do you have this? Do you have that? And you start checking stuff off. When you get to the other, you write the other things that you're feeling, that you're going through, that are showing up, that aren't on those lists. They can do additional testing, but if you don't bring it up, they have they call it standard, standards of care, SOC, standards of care. And that's all.
Okay, I told you it was going to be good, and it's not over. You have to come back. You have to check. You can like, you can leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for blessing me. My prayer is that I am a blessing to you. Peace.